Hello and welcome to Boomer 11. Today we are on the football side of things and we are going to be talking about England, but it is England, the football team, and not the cricket team. I think we spoke enough about the cricket team yesterday. But welcome on the show once again. But before we begin, remember Boomer 11 is a fantasy experience which is risk free and you can download it right now on the Apple App Store or the Google Play, depending on whether you're an Android user or you're an Apple iOS user. You can definitely experience Boomer 11 risk-free fantasy experience where you don't have to invest any money. It's free and you get coins for every victory that you get, and you can redeem them for exciting prices. I have Abel with me right here, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most exciting teams coming in this World Cup, England. Abel, let's begin with the fact. Do you think England are gonna bring it home? 1966 was the last time they won it against Germany in the finals, 4-2. After that, it's been a long drought where we've had some exciting England teams going to the World Cup. But I reckon after the golden generation of Rooney and Stevie Gerrard, this was one of the most exciting squads that is heading into the World Cup.
Oh yeah, absolutely it is. But firstly, we are talking about the football team, as you rightly mentioned. A little sick of talking about the cricket team with whatever happened over the last 24 hours. But to be honest, they've this particular England team is giving a lot of hopes, and for the right reasons. So when we talk about the golden generation of English players, Rooney, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, Paul Scholes, they had that in them. David Beckham. Everyone thought that could possibly be one of the most talented squads out there. But the fact of the matter was, they never played as a team. I never saw them play as a team. They always struggled when it came to the big occasions. They failed to cross over the line more often than not. So there were a lot of jitters when it comes to them. Finally getting over the mark with that English team. But with this England team, I thought 2016 onwards it was a huge revelation. When they got knocked out in the 2014 World Cup, I was like, okay, now this should be the end. I mean, what more? The kind of talent they've got. Okay, 2014 World Cup squad was not the best. It was not the most talented World Cup squads. But the fact of the matter is that they never made it out there. They were always struggling when it comes to them crossing over the line, the last, or putting up a team like performance. In 2010, they came up against a very good German side. Uh, One could argue the goal line technology wasn't really used. Frank Lampard's shot was not, the goal which went in, which crossed the line, was not given. But still, you were hammered. I think you were hammered 4-0, if I remember, in that round of 16 match. So nothing really went right for England in that year from around 10s, 2000s. But 2016 onwards, when they got knocked out of the Euros against Iceland in round of 16, that was when it hit for England. What are we even doing? I mean, when they brought in someone like Gareth Southgate, the first question everyone had was, who is Gareth Southgate? Nobody has even heard him before. Who is even the right man to lead them? Because you had people previously who were reputed names who could possibly have led you to many many titles. But when Gareth Southgate took over, there were definite questions over his career, because everyone remembers him for the penalty miss which he had in 96 euros. So he was definitely not the ideal figure leading, taking up the job, because there is a section of the entire English fan base even now who believes that Gareth Southgate is not the right man for the job, and rightly so. Rightly so. They have got their own point of view to put it up, stating that why Gareth Southgate is not the right man. But when it comes to Gareth Southgate taking the team over for the first ever time, the first thing what he did was to create a team culture, which I thought was so essential in a team like England. The fact of the matter is that in England, the club rivalries often tend to, transcend, or often tend to, overlap over the national team. The fact, even 2000s, even early 2000s and 2010s, you often saw England never play as a team. That's mainly, you've seen Rio Ferdinand come and talk about it. You've seen even, Frank Lampard talk about it. The fact is that they never played as a team because of the club rivalries they had in England. Club rivalries was such that they used to always feel the tension when they used to walk into that English dressing room, which meant that they could never play as a team. And finally, when Gareth Southgate took over in 2018, one thing which he really cleared was, we'll play as a team, we'll fight for each other, we'll have each other's back in all these occasions. And they started showing that a lot more. And that I saw was that I thought was a welcome change in the entirety of English dressing room, and in the way in which they approach the game. 2018 was their first major trophy, which they played, and they played really well. You saw that England team really take it on. I remember watching them first match against Panama. I know it's a small nation, but the intensity of the English team was so different from any other England team I've ever seen in my career, my entire life of watching football. And in 2010, I saw a disappointing England team because I was very keen to follow the English team because I watched. Of course, I've got a lot of liking to liking to Premier League, so I always felt like these stars can make it big, and I always enjoyed watching the likes of Harry Kane play, and this generation especially. I was super excited about it. I knew that they've got that edge in them to go a long way, and the moment they took over, the moment they took off in that World Cup against Panama is where they played. I know they lost to Belgium in the World Cup. That was basically dead rubber. But then came the round of 16. Uh, and round of 16 too, they were up there. They knew what they had to do. Then they won the penalties against Colombia, one thing which they always struggle to do in World Cups, to win in penalties. And finally they crossed that big hurdle of winning in penalties. So I thought something is working right for this team. And I think Gareth Southgate has done a very good job. I think finishing fourth in a World Cup after he took over, it was a welcome change.
Yeah, I mean, let's just before we come to Gareth Southgate once, let's look at the squad right here that England have selected. Some surprises here. I think I'll just cover a few of them. Let's first talk about the inclusion of a player like James Madison, and he is someone
Yeah,
who's been the fringe of the cup. We even spoke about it previously as well. James Madison has been an excellent player for Leicester City. Even this season, they've hadn't had the best of starts, England, and
yeah,
they haven't looked a better. I mean, not England, rather Leicester City in Premier League. They were relegation threatened for quite some time, and some sort of a semblance of a comeback in the past few game weeks. But James Madison has been one, I think, beacon of light probably for Leicester City. He's been turning up for them. He's scored 6 goals so far in the Premier League in his 12 matches that he's played, and has had 4 assists. That's 10 goal contributions for him. But you still reckon you expected James Madison to make it in the squad at the start of before the England before he came up with the squad.
I was a little skeptical because knowing Gareth Southgate, he likes to stick to his kind of players, the squad which keeps on playing over a longer period of time, and he believes in that philosophy a lot more. Because I believe so that why he believes in that philosophy is because he believes that they get to spend a lot more time together in national team. They've created a certain dressing room atmosphere there. Henceforth, he likes to go on with the same players regardless of the form they show in the club level. If you'd have gone by club reputation, then you wouldn't have found someone like a Harry Maguire in that squad, or likes of Calvin Phillips in that squad, which is still surprising for me for a lot of reasons, because they've not had enough minutes under their belt for the entirety of the season. Now they're going to be going to the World Cup all of a sudden, an high intensity, high octane tournament. They'll be underway in a tough group, considerably not the most easiest of the group, because they've got Wales who can pull up surprises. Iran team is going to be very solid at the back, and it's not going to be easy to penetrate them. So I was a little skeptical when he was going to go with James Madison. I was like, he might not even pick him, because that is the Southgate we know. And I'm pretty happy that he picked him ultimately, because he's had a very
So,
good season.
do you reckon Abel, it's a reaction to the Nations League defeat that England faced? Do you think because the major criticism of England was the fact that their attacking play was lacking a lot of creativity, and
Yeah.
there was one criticization that came way of Gareth Southgate. Is that a reaction to this kind of criticization that he received that Madison is in the squad now?
I mean, possibly. I'll just pull up the squad once again. If you understand that, he has named James Madison as a forward rather than a midfielder as well over there. So very interesting, because he
Hmm.
plays at a number 10 spot for Leicester, and he's been doing that
Yeah,
really well. This season he scored 6 goals and 4 assists so far in 12 games. Great
yeah.
stat to have, and his impact in Leicester
And that
City,
too, I
a
mean,
team which has been.
In a Leicester City team which is underperformed, to be very honest, in this season.
Yeah, they are underperforming big time, and he's been the only shining light in the entire team. To be very
Yeah.
fair, and that's the reason I felt this lad deserves a lot more, and I believe he'll get a bigger club next season, at least if Leicester doesn't go on to qualify into the top 10, or even to finish in the mid table this season. I'm pretty sure there are better clubs which he'll get in the next season, but Nations League performance which they had was just awful, to be very fair. The way they got relegated into the B, the into the next group, and not just that, the way in which they played in majority of the matches, they were unable to score goals. They hadn't had a single win in the entirety of Nations League. And what was funny was until the last game, they had 0 goals from open play, which was it was pretty much a shocker for me. With the kind of depth this English team has got,
Hmm.
and to not to score goals from open play, I couldn't just take it. I couldn't just fathom the fact that they couldn't just do it, because, in my opinion, this is the most fearless or the most fluid team you can get on paper. If you look at these lads when they play for club level, the way they use, the way they can be used in this English setup, Gareth Southgate was very rigid, because Gareth Southgate has got a certain system which he believes in. He's a very pragmatic manager. Let's all accept the fact that he's a very pragmatic manager, and it has gotten him success to a certain extent, and he's not gotten him a silverware, which I believe he's still in the hunt for that. But the fact of the matter is that he's still been successful enough to take an English team out of the ruins and to bring them somewhere relevant. Now today you talk them as a you really do rate them as a World Cup contender because of the fact that they've been consistent over the last 5 years. From 2017 2022, they've reached one major final. They've reached a semi-final of a World Cup. They have finished number 3 in a Nations League. So they've done all these things in a very short period of time, and I think you have to give credit to Gareth Southgate for that very reason. But at the same time, his rigidity is something which is now really affecting the team as well. He's very rigid with the fluid players he's got. He's got one of the most attacking teams. Now, if you look at someone like Bukayo Saka, he's got likes of Phil Foden, Mason Mount, James Madison, for example. But these lads, he's never deployed these lads to effect, and that's something which I think will will really affect them. And hi Fatima. And in my opinion, at some stage or the other, you will see this team not really cross the final hurdle, and that's also going to be because of the rigidity factor in Gareth Southgate. I'll tell you two of the times in World Cup semi-final in 2018, they took a lead against Croatia in the third or fourth minute when Trippier scored that free kick. And in the Euro final against Italy, they took a lead in the second or third in the third minute again when Trippier assisted Luke Shaw put the ball back into the net. But they were super rigid in actually playing a very fluid football. They wanted to sit deep. They wanted to absorb the pressure. I knew they were very likely to concede a goal there, and that's exactly what happened. I think they need to be much more braver when it comes to them taking a lead earlier on, then not giving it away, then not absolutely making a mess of it, which I've seen of this English team do it on couple of the big occasions, couple of the biggest occasions. And that's what makes me really worry. That's where Gareth Southgate's tactics comes into question. The whole reason why he's a very pragmatic manager, the way he's not flexible enough to try his players. For example, in the entirety of the Euros which got over last year, I thought the way he used certain players was exceptional. Likes of Calvin Phillips, he used him to perfection. The way he defined the role for Declan Rice to play deep inside, absorb the pressure, and it did show that he was doing a decent job, because he was your cover shadow when it came to your defense. He used to drop in between the defenders when it need be in a defensive transition, and Calvin Phillips used to be used to operate in half spaces between a Mason Mount and a Bukayo Saka, and that used to work well for England in the attacking transition. It did work well against Germany. If I remember, it did work well against Ukraine as well. So there were positives out of it, but at the same time, you know, in important situations, under pressure, I always felt like that those tactics weren't going to work, because you had a team who could play a lot more aggressive, who could play at a they could play on a high line. Not maybe as you don't have to go out there press and play like a Manchester City or a Liverpool, but then they are capable of doing much better in terms of their attacking play, especially their wing backs. They can maybe progress a lot more front, because of the fact that he used to play five at the back at times. That used to really annoy me. With three center backs and two wing backs there, I really thought that was not needed with this team, especially in that World Cup final when he took on Italy. I thought playing five at the back was not necessarily needed, because it did not the occasion did not need that, because you took a lead well enough, well and fair, but then that didn't. And also with your wing backs not pushing forward, that does not really help the cause for this team England. And maybe that's where I felt Gareth Southgate as a manager has been a letdown. And James Madison inclusion is a positive sign, but let's see whether he uses him or not.
I mean, let's talk about this other controversy that has come up now, right? I mean, Tammy Abrams missed out on a selection to England squad once again. Callum Wilson from Newcastle is the one who's probably been selected instead of him. That's what that is the speculation around him. But Callum
Yeah.
Wilson has scored 6 goals in the Premier League so far for Newcastle, who are actually number 3 right now in the Premier League, sitting above almost, I think, except for Arsenal and Man City, who are in a different league of their own right now.
Yeah.
Newcastle are sitting above United, sitting above Liverpool. They've done exceptionally well this tournament, and they're looking very good. Tammy Abraham, on the other hand, for Roma, who are seventh right now in Serie A, has only scored 3 goals in 14 matches. I mean, Callum Wilson has scored double of them, playing only 10 matches. Is that something that you really think just this season is what has been the reason for Tammy Abraham to miss out? Because in the previous season, he scored 17 goals for Roma. He was one of the revelations for them. But this season around, he hasn't really gotten the start. So is that the sole reason why you think he is missed out and it's Callum Wilson who's been selected instead?
Yeah, that's possibly one of the reasons which I can absolutely identify at this point. And it's very rare from Southgate to do that. He usually doesn't prefer players who perform exceptionally well. He goes on the team
I
philosophy,
mean,
as I
I'll just
already
add
mentioned.
one more point, right? There's a section of fans, English fans, who believe that Gareth Southgate is inclined to take players only from the Premier League, and both I think Fikayo Tomari and you also have now Tammy Abraham, both players who have done well in Serie A, aren't in the call. I mean, selection aren't in the contention for this World Cup squad, or at least didn't seem like Gareth Southgate considered them for contention. So is that bias really reflecting, or is there some merit to it?
Uh, yeah, to be
I think
honest,
Gaurav Pandit is probably right. Is that a Premier League quota, unquote unquote?
I mean, I would say yes, to a certain extent. And this lad has picked up 25 out of 26, 24 or 25 players. It was 26 men squad, right? Out of that, at least
Yeah.
25 or 24 of them were from Premier League, and one player from Bundesliga. It's been Jude
I think,
Bellingham, and he's
to
been
be very
exceptional,
honest,
right?
Gareth Southgate would have to be blind deaf to not select Jude Bellingham,
I mean, to be
because
very
you can
fair,
see how he's doing
to
well.
yeah,
You can hear
understandable.
yeah.
I on his defense, I'll say two things. Gareth Southgate, to be very honest, when it comes to selecting Fukayo Tamori or not, Fukayo Tamori in big games, especially that game against Chelsea, I remember over the 2 legs, he was a disappointment. And I've noticed with Fukayo Tamori also in many plays bigger oppositions, he tends to crumble. He's a little confused on the ball at times. He tends to make a lot more errors on the ball, which is not a good thing, to be honest. And he might have had that in the mind. I bet as an English coach and with the kind of data which is fed into this English team. I've been reading a lot about this English team through Athletic and the data-driven process they've got, which is very interesting, to be honest. I did not expect football is data-driven a lot more these days, but then this English team
Yeah.
under Southgate, they're much more data-driven. They had prepared for that Euro quarterfinal against Germany for the last 2 years, and finally they were able to excel against Germany, breaking down on data. It was just a data driven performance which created the tactics for them to defeat Germany, which is very fascinating. And which I believe they would have definitely considered Fukayo Tomori as well. When it comes to him performing in big games under oppositions who tend to press him, he really crumbles on the ball. And you saw that in UCL, a couple of occasions in UCL, though he did exceedingly well last season in Serie A, helping AC Milan to their major Serie A title. But then the fact of the matter is that there are occasions where Fukayo Tomori hasn't really looked good. And personally, I felt it. I've seen it on first hand. Fukayo Tomori really tends to crumble. When I talk about Tammy Abraham and Callum Wilson, Tammy Abraham last season was a different beast altogether. And this season, with the inclusion of Dybala into that Roma squad, I think Tammy hasn't really got the limelight. He's just got 3 goals, 1 assist, and his
Yeah.
involvement in the game. I know he holds the ball a lot more. I think we have to look Tammy in 2 ways. This season, he's been holding the ball a lot more than the last season. Last season, he was making a lot more in behind runs. He was a target man for Roma. But this season, him linking up with Dybala in the top two, when they both are linking up, he's the one who's trying to create the play a lot more. He's trying to drop in a little more deeper into that, because Roma doesn't play the most attacking fluent football. They're trying to tend to attack from the
I
back,
think that's
play
Jose
that
Mourinho.
counter.
Jose Mourinho is someone who's also a very pragmatic manager, right? And that's probably the reason why you would see that happening with Tammy right now.
Yeah, by Maggu अपना false nine
Yeah, I
खेलेगा
think he's
क्या
talking about
खेलेगा.
Harry Maguire or Gaurav Pandit.
हाँ, ऑफ कोर्स मैगवायर तो खेलेगा ही फॉल्स नाइन, मतलब Okay, I'll come to the Maguire factor as well,
Yeah,
because
we are going to talk about it.
there's a lot of hue and cry about Maguire's inclusion as well, and I think which we should address. I think we should address. Aisha, we're doing
Let's talk
fine.
about that, right? I mean, Maguire hasn't played, is definitely out of Eric Ten Hag's plans. Right now, to be very frank, Maguire is just earning wages at Man United. He isn't getting any play time. Now, that has been an issue with, that was something that was very concerning English squad, the fact that defensive centre backs, right? Centre backs, as in even Luke Shaw initially did not seem like he was part of Eric Ten Hag's plans, but he still played more. And
Hmm.
Lord Maguire, as he's known around the world, he is someone I think who's done a lot better for England. Do you reckon it's because of the way Man United play? Right, Man United like to, like the centre backs to get involved a lot more. They play a higher, I think they play a
At
higher
least
line
in
as
this
well.
system,
And
the centre backs should be involved a
yeah, I
lot
think
more.
because
That's the reason why they
you
have brought in
expect,
Martinez as a ball playing defender. But
yeah,
the fact of the matter when we talk about Maguire is also that in England he doesn't have to. He's more of a stopper than a player who goes up front with the ball. He's not comfortable on the ball. We all know about Maguire is not comfortable on the ball, and also United did not have a center defensive midfielder to give him that shadow or a defensive partner with him who could really help him out of trouble. But when it comes to English team, he's got a defensive cover up front with Declan Rice and maybe Jude Bellingham or Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips, who are strong defensively. One of the reasons why England was defensively one of the most compactable sides going into the Euro final was the fact that they were very good. They were never ready to concede goals because of the fact that they had enough defensive support in the back line. Even when you talk about the wing backs, that the wing backs are not the most aggressive wing backs. It's not a Trent Alexander-Arnold who will push forward, overlap runs over Saka. You've got a Trippier, you've got a Kyle Walker who can be a lot more defensive. Kyle Walker in a City team and a Kyle Walker uh, in an England team is totally different. Kyle Walker is much more defensively used under Gareth Southgate compared to a Kyle Walker under Pep Guardiola, and that's also because of the system which both deploy. And when it comes to Luke Shaw, he was also playing Luke Shaw in a very deep line. There were times when Trippier used to start in Luke Shaw's place, which makes him an even more defensively prominent side. So it really does help Maguire to cover a lot of his flaws. I'm not saying Maguire is the best defender in the world, and he's made a lot more errors, which no defender in the world should be doing it. And there is no way to there's no way to actually justify his performance for United over a longer period of time in some of the biggest matches. So for that very fact, I would say Maguire is being made, is made very good or maybe at least decent because of the players he's got around him. When you compare with Maguire, he's got Maguire in Manchester United. Maguire in Manchester United is not a very good player because of the very fact that in Manchester United he's not got enough support or he's not got the players around him to really make him look good as well. For
I
example,
mean, also as
Varane
you,
has
yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
Also, I mean,
Yeah,
if
go
you
ahead.
look at Man United right now, you see that both Varane and before Varane got injured, Varane and Martinez were able to defend a lot better than Maguire and Martinez. That was the initial plan, rather I think, or Maguire and Varane in the previous season. So I mean, from my understanding, what I understand, I mean, what I think is it's because Maguire is not someone who has gotten the pace to catch up with the modern strikers. Modern strikers are much quicker, and the football pace has become such an important quality when it comes to strikers or defenders. And you're seeing some, for example, now you're seeing Van Dijk struggle with that pace as well for Liverpool in the Premier League, right? Some of the defenders, I mean, strikers are able to run behind him, make the runs behind him. Now, do you think because England plays, England system, the system that Southgate brings into, doesn't require Maguire to really go high up the pitch, which means he can actually, he has a distance where he can wait for the strikers to come to him, and that's where he's doing well. As you mentioned, he's a stopper. And maybe Maguire, if he plays for some other club, which probably has a pragmatic manager, he might do a lot better than what he's doing for United right now.
Yeah, that's a point which we should consider because of the fact that in English team, I told you they're a very pragmatic side. They don't really attack a lot. So the fact of the matter is that he has to play on a low, in a low block comparatively or in a mid block around players like John Stones, who's a much better ball player. You got a much more better defensive line when it comes to at least English team, and they're much more compact. At least their defenders drop deep, and all what is to do is to defend the final ball or clear the final ball. It does not have to lead the game, or it does not have to play the ball from the back. in maybe under 10 hack system, you have to do that. You have to do that a lot more. You have to play the ball from the back. You have to pass it on to the center defensive mid. Then the play progression starts from the back. From De Gea, it goes to Maguire. But when it comes to an English team, the play doesn't really start from the back. Or what Maguire is used in England team is basically as a stopper. If you look Maguire, when he's pressed, he looks out of position. He looks clueless. And one other thing with also Maguire is that when he goes front with the ball, he looks out of position as well. I've seen that a lot more, which happened with Maguire. But in England team, it does not happen because he plays in a low block where he has to just sit there, defend, and that's exactly what his job was in Leicester City as well to an extent. Not the
Yeah.
fact that I'm appreciating his defensive acumen, which I still think is way below par as a player, but the fact is that when he defends in a low block where he has to clear, where he has to be as a stopper, he does a lot more better. Which I think Gareth Southgate has tend to identify that, and also Maguire is much more comfortable playing in England. I think it's also a psychological factor at the end of the day, because we don't often talk about psychological factors in football, and I think we should, because in every sport psychological factors matter. The dressing room atmosphere, as I mentioned, Gareth Southgate has really understood him, has made him feel a lot more comfortable. Hence, you're seeing the kind of performance from Harry Maguire. If you compare, uh, if you compare Harry Maguire in England and Harry Maguire in Manchester United, it's chalk and cheese. They're two different players. Because Harry Maguire in England is a much better player. At least he's much more confident. He looks at least confident when he wears an English shirt. There's a lot more passion in him. That you can see that he wants it a lot more. There's a lot of leadership acumen in him when it comes to him leading the lines, not leading the lines, leading the back line at least, when it comes to the English team. And he's done that pretty decently so far in two of your major trophies. He's done a decent job. Especially in Euro 2022, he was pretty good. He was very good in Euro 2022. I thought that was his best tournament so far for England, more than 2018 World Cup, and it did show as well. It did show in the way how English team lined up for that last for even against Italy, against one of the most attacking sides in that in that Euros. They were really ready to absorb the pressure, take the bull by its horn, and play some really good football. And that's why I was pretty impressed with Harry Maguire. I think that's where I'll give him a little bit of leeway when it comes to criticism he's getting. I'll take some questions right now. England will need easy draws to go far in the World Cup at 28 and 2022. Interesting that you mentioned. I think we'll take that up
Hmm.
as we go
I think
forward.
he just. I think he's.
Oh yeah, there's a rivalry. Aisha versus Gaurav rivalry is really lit up now when it comes to England versus Pakistan. And finally, it's happening. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it all started right here
We
in
will
Boomer
talk
11.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
will
will
talk
talk
about
about
it come this Saturday. But let's talk about football, right? Let's talk about the. I think the point that was raised by by Azul. Let's talk about the draw that England have had now in this tournament right now, leading up. Right, England are in Group B. They have Iran, USA, and Wales, which you would say is a respectable group. It's not going to be easy because all three teams on their day can be very difficult, very potent teams. Iran probably is a team you expect at number four. Wales and USA, I think those are the two, especially the US England rivalry. Back in US, that is one rivalry that they have hyped up. The
it.
US, I mean, US is really excited to play England. You know, the Atlantic rivalry is what I think what they call it, or the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, Atlantic
Yeah, the
rivalry. Yeah.
Atlantic. Yeah, and that's what they call it. So let's talk about that right there. Do you think US versus England? Does US have any chance at going after England, or is it going to be
To be very
is it
fair,
going to be an England
we didn't
easy
talk
match?
about the US team even in the preview,
Yeah,
and I'm not very convinced with the US team leading into this World Cup because of the kind of players and the lack of form. They've got names. They've got names like Pulisic. They've got names like Dest. They've got names like McKinney. But if you look them individually, because the fact of the matter is they're okay, the fact that they're playing in Europe doesn't mean that that's a good that makes them a good team. They got names who are decent players. But if you look at their current form, they've been awful form. Look at Pulisic, the performance he put up against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup. He missed close to 3 or 4 chances. Oh, in open chances, I would say. They were all tap-ins which he missed. He's looking very underconfident as a player. Dest, when it comes to defensive performance of Dest, he's been awful. The reason why Barcelona had to get rid of him was he was very awful with Barcelona. He just couldn't defend. And now when he went to AC Milan, a player who's criticized a lot, the players who Milan fans are happy with is Serginho Dest, because of the fact that this lad hasn't really stepped up. And this lad has, when you look at him statistically as well, he's good. He's good on the ball. He's good when you talk about him making the attacking transitions. He can progress the ball up front. He can play in the half space. He can cut in. Uh, all these traits are very good when it comes to Serginho Dest. These all make him a potential star in the. It could make him a potential star in the future. Remember, he's still a 20-year-old player. He's got a long time to develop. He's got a very big future ahead of this lad. But the fact is that this lad hasn't really shown it enough for this US team to trust upon him and take him a long way. Uh, I think that's a US team really lacks a lot more. I don't want to preview a lot into US team. I think we will talk about US team in depth when it comes to US team. But the names who US team have really deployed, their squad is also announced, and the form they all are in their respective teams. Even Gio Reyna, for example, this season has been not the most impressive player for Dortmund as well. So these players are big name, not big name. These players are big names because of the fact that these are all American players who play in European names. So they tend to get noticed because they come from America, come from leagues like MLS. So they get this high the moment they come to Europe, but then they've not delivered. Christian Pulisic has not
Yeah.
delivered. Sergio Dest has not delivered. Gio Reyna has not reached that level. McKinney for Juventus hasn't been the best player. So I don't think US will go a long way. They've not looked very impressive at all in the kind of games they play leading into this tournament. They got the 1 win against Panama. I think they lost to El Salvador as well, and they lost to Japan. Not the best team leading into this World Cup. Henceforth, I think with the kind of talent depth this English team has got, they should really have a good game against US and get those 3 points.
Absolutely. So that is, and what do you think of Wales? I think Wales and England probably will be that match against that match will probably decide who the toppers of this group are.
Yeah,
Wales are a team, which seem to be gelling together coming into the World Cup.
yeah.
Not Southgate, but rather Gareth Bale, the Madrid player who's much better in the Wales shirt than the Madrid shirt, you would say, especially in the recent past. And
Former
then they've got
Madrid
some
player, at
the
least
former
former
Madrid
Madrid
player.
player.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you also have someone like Joe Allen, who's looking really good. I think in that midfield, he's someone who's responsible to get the ball to Gareth Bale. And then you have Ramsey as well, who hasn't looked the player he has been in the past. So do you think they can now bring a challenge? They can be a challenge to England in this group because they are probably the one team that will be hoping they can top this group. England would look the favorites on paper, but do you reckon Wales can punch above their weight and maybe defeat England?
It is a possibility. The fact is that England tends to struggle against teams who play defensive football, and Wales tends to blow hot and cold. They've not also been not the most consistent team. Ideally, England should finish the group on top of the table. I mean, there would not be any excuse for England if they not finish the group rather than coming second or even anything below that. That's going to be just a shocker of an exit for Team England. But I think against teams like Iran, Wales, England might struggle a little bit to score because the fact is that I've seen them play against Scotland in that Euros. I've seen them play against teams who are defensively very compact. They tend to struggle against them. Though England will try to play those long balls and try to get Harry Kane into play and get him into the position, but the moment you are unable to penetrate, which I've seen this with this England team in multiple occasions, let it be in Euros, let it be in the Nations League, especially in the Nations League, which recently concluded, there were occasions where this English team was unable to penetrate into the box and get that final ball in and score a goal and put that behind the net. So I think that is where England team is going to struggle if the Wales team put up a compact performance against England, where they're defensively very strong and confident about themselves, then it could be a result which will go in Wales' favor. Maybe it could be a 1-0 result, or maybe it could even be a result where the points are shared, which I think is a very good result for Wales at the end of the day. And for England, it'll be a disappointment. For England, ideally, they should win all the games in their group, and even against Iran. And mind you, Iran is a defensively very compact team. They come to every World Cup, and even leading into this World Cup, they've been a team who have really put themselves under. They've put a good show defensively, at least leading into this World Cup. Hence, I believe England's biggest challenge is going to be how they penetrate the back line, how they penetrate it using their defensive strength, which I think is very good. But when it comes to wingers, I still am very skeptical. The number of wingers they've chosen, the kind of attacking play these wingers have, and because the wing backs don't really attack a lot more, especially in that system, it's going to really not help the cause for the English wingers. Because then, if without the wingers or the wing backs overlapping, it is not really going to help in penetration. There are times of phases in games they do it, that they don't do it in consistent basis, which makes them a potent attacking threat. Which I'm talking about the English team and their wing backs over here. So I think Gareth Southgate will have to ponder a lot more in his attacking style of play, which I think is going to be so essential in this World Cup. And if England's draws go as per what they want or as per it's predicted, I think England will face Netherlands uh, in the quarterfinal or at least in the round of 16, and England may face Argentina as well at some stage. So those don't look good. It's not the easiest lead up. As Azil really mentioned, England's draw should go their way like 20 and 2022. England had a very
Hmm.
easy run, comparatively easy
Yeah.
run compared to a lot of teams in 2018 and even 2022. In the lead up to the final, you played who? You played a Ukraine team, um, and you played a German team, which was good. I think that was a tough game for them because there was a lot of history behind that rivalry. England haven't been
Yeah.
getting the better of them for the longest period of time. To get a 2-0 win to keep a clean sheet against Germany was a very good result. I thought that was their best performance in that entire Euro. And and they came up against a very resurgent Danish squad. That Danish squad was looking so energetic. They really wanted it there. They're playing really good football. But then they scored the first goal. I thought England were in the back foot for them to come back into that game and to get the lead ultimately. I thought that's good performance to England, even in the semi final there, because it wasn't going to be easy. But also remember, they got a lot of home support during that run. England played
Hmm.
all their matches in Wembley except the game against Ukraine where they went to Rome and played. So even in the final, they played in Wembley. So they had a lot of things going in their favor when it comes to home support. When it comes to the draws, they had comparatively an easy group. They had who, if I remember, they had Scotland, they had Croatia in the group. I thought the first win against Croatia also was pretty impressive to an extent. I thought Euros was tougher than World Cup 2018. 2018 was still a comparatively easy run, but still ultimately you have to reach and go to the final pole position. Losing on a penalty in 2022, unfortunate to England. But I think the Nations League performance does not give me any positive. But the only silver lining in all of this is the last game they played against Germany. I think England were 3-1 down. And to
Yeah.
come, no, they were 3-1 down.
They were,
No,
yeah.
they were 2-1 down.
They were
And to
2-0
come back
down,
and
and
take
then
a
they
lead,
scored three
yeah,
goals, and then again in the
yeah, they
last
scored
minute, I
three.
think Germany made a comeback.
Yeah, no, that 20 minutes which England played after making substitutions, when they brought in Mason Mount, when they brought in Bukayo Saka into the team, and the kind of play they had in those 20 minutes, that's the England I want to see over a longer period of time, because that's the capability this team has gotten them. That's a capability this team has gotten them. Because if you look at this team from outside, on paper they look like one of the most talented squads. That's the thing with thing with England squads over a longer period of time. If you look from 1990s
Yeah.
onwards, English team always had that talent. It's about how they deliver in the big stage, and I think they're finally trying to break that jinx of this bigger names not delivering in the bigger occasions by Gareth Southgate. Gareth Southgate has really made sure the team environment is really calm. The team environment where everybody's gelling together, where there are no egos. Players of similar age, one of the youngest squads out there in the World Cup right now, average age of 23, 24. All players going towards their peak, all teams performing really well for their clubs. I think they're all some of the best youngsters for their club. They're not the big names for their club. There are still bigger names for their club, but they're all one of the most promising players for the club. Likes of Phil Foden, likes of Mason Mount, Jude Bellingham. All these are players who are really destined for greatness. All these players have gotten them to take it to the next level, and that's why I personally feel this team has gotten them to really go a long way. आप दोनों अच्छा लग रहे हो. Third person को बुला के मेरे को it's okay, Aisha. I think we'll talk about that later. Yeah, the fact is that for this English team, they all what they have to do is to play fluid football, and I think they've got the talent in them to play fluid football. You saw that in
Mm.
faces when they do play fluid football, they go on to do well as well. So I finally hope that Gareth Southgate at least deploys the system. He's got certain plans in certain situations where he can deploy it. Like I saw against Germany was excellent, because the kind of goals they scored, the kind of confidence they had on the ball while doing attacking progression, because every player for their club, that's the role they play. For example, Mason Mount, when he's deployed as a number 10, a free roaming midfielder, is very dangerous. Phil Foden, similar. Jack Grealish
Yeah.
is very good when he cuts in, when he plays centrally. But if you're all going to tell that, okay, see, don't make a lot of attacking progression over here, let's pass the ball back, Just pass the ball here. Let's not do vertical passes. Just pass sideways passing. It doesn't really help the cause. This team becomes 10 times more dangerous when they play vertical passes in. They really attack forward, make those in behind runs where Jude Bellingham gets into half spaces in between Mason Mount and links up with Harry Kane, which I think is a possibility with this team, which I think this team should ideally be doing.
Yeah, I think we saw that the kind of attacking prowess this team has when they were 2-0 down against Germany, right? To come back to get a lead against the German team, that the quality of German team that they have, I think that's where you saw the kind of attacking prowess they have, that they can really attack when they want to. But I think the kind of system that Southgate deploys, you would only expect that to happen when they have their backs against the ball. And unfortunately, or so, I think England's system is fashioned in that manner. But it does show that this England team can make a comeback. They have got the gumption. They've got the when the need presents itself, they can really go after the teams. And maybe in a cup tournament, you always see it that most often than not, defensive managers, pragmatic managers get the trophy. And it's always it's always that anecdote, or the saying in football has been that defenders win you win tournaments, and strikers only win you matches. But let's look at the probable 11 that England might come up with when it comes to the World Cup ties. I think let's just look at here, right here. Now we have a 4-2-3-1 formation. Let's talk about this right here, Abel. Let's start with the goalkeeper position right now. Nick Pope
Mm.
or Jordan Pickford are the two probable players that you'll see up there.
Yeah,
Um,
I, I,
what do you think of
I,
Aaron Ramsdale being missing out? Because he's been excellent for Arsenal. He has been probably one of the players who's turned around for Arsenal, right?
Yeah, he's been confident on the ball. He's looked much more confident. Teju rightly mentions someone like a Reece James missing out is a huge blow for this team because the kind of form
Hmm.
Reece James was in before his injury and the kind of ability Reece James has got in the attacking gameplay and also in defensive gameplay. He was one of the best right backs in the world, if not just in the Premier League. He was one of the best right backs I've seen in Premier League in the recent times because he had gotten it. When you talk about Trent, he's very good in attacking progression, but when it comes to defensive play, there are serious question marks because he doesn't really commit himself into a defensive player, and I've seen that in Liverpool a lot of times this season, and this season
Yeah.
especially that has been exploited big time by the
I
by
think
teams
he got
where
exposed really in the finals of UEFA Champions League, where Real Madrid, that coming into that match as well, we knew that Vinicius Junior would be a threat against Trent Alexander-Arnold. But ever
yeah
since he's been exposed in that match, I think teams have really realized that's one problem for Liverpool. And he has been that
yeah
flank has really been the issue where, players have started to get behind Trent Alexander-Arnold, and then you've required Van Dijk and Joe Gomez or whoever plays with Van Dijk to really, clear the mess that was created by Alexander Arnold.
Yeah, absolutely, Jen. Because when we talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold as a player, I have a lot of respect for him as an attacking player. He can be deployed even as a number 8 at times because he's got the attacking play in him, which a lot of defenders in the world doesn't, and he can make he can make deep runs. Into the final third of the opposition. He can go and put pinpoint crosses into your attackers' feet or their head, which really has benefited Liverpool big time in their last 3 to 4 years, where Andy Robertson from the left and Trent Alexander from the right has really been able to push the field a lot more, which also meant that they when it at least came to Van Dijk in the defensive line, it gave them a lot more assurance that these two could at least push forward and put the ball in, which really helped them to score a lot of goals, especially him linking up with Mohamed Salah was a delightful side for the longest period of time. And what has happened this season is that teams have understood that there's a clear weakness with Trent Alexander-Arnold, especially when it comes to him making defensive transitions. And when you put him under pressure, he tends to crumble as well because he's not got the physicality in him to defend, and he's not got the technique in him to defend. Technicality is something which was always missing in Trent Alexander-Arnold, and to combine it with physicality is not gotten it in him. that's really put him in a position where he's gotten exposed on multiple fronts. And now this season for Klopp, he has to think a lot more deeper. I thought there were times when Simicas could start also in place of Trent Alexander-Arnold. They've also looked at James Milner at times. But the fact is that they still have to go back to Trent Alexander-Arnold because he's still your X factor player out there. But now, if you look at the squad, they have named Trent Alexander-Arnold in their English squad, but here I think Kyle Walker will be a short starter. There is no player who is going to replace Kyle Walker. There is a possibility that there could be Trippier who will start as left back. But personally, for me, I would want Trippier to start over Kyle Walker. It's gonna be a tough call for them. But Trippier also gives you, what the kind of form Trippier has been. Excellent free kick taker. He can be
Hmm.
used as he's been making some good, especially this season for Newcastle. His attacking progression has been a notable thing to watch. And
Yeah.
hence for Newcastle has done pretty well as well, especially on the right hand flank for Newcastle. He's played on the left hand side as well on a couple of
Yeah,
occasions
I
for
mean,
Newcastle this season. Yeah,
for a right back player, he's already got I think 4 goal contributions in 14 matches, which is excellent. I think for a right back player, that's really good.
exactly. And that's the reason I personally feel Trippier should start. And Southgate has always preferred Trippier in some of the big occasions, especially against Germany, against Italy in the final. He's preferred Trippier, and Trippier had a very good game in the final as well, where he put in that excellent ball in the feet of Luke Shaw. Trippier's goal in the semi-final against Croatia was a great one. And Trippier creates these moments of magic, which he's capable of doing, and hence I think Trippier is an option which Southgate will consider even over Kyle Walker. And I think him overlapping with Bukayo Saka is one thing which we should be seeing this season, uh, especially in this World Cup, because Bukayo Saka could be the player who might start ahead of Phil Foden in the right hand side, because Phil Foden, he's much more comfortable playing on the left hand side, and I don't see Gareth Southgate looking beyond Sterling in the left hand side, because Sterling has had a very good time with English team. He's scored 17 goals for them, and he's put up a very good performance. If you look at one of the key players, it's been Sterling by mile, and he had a very good Euros as well. Remember that he was one of the contenders for the best player in Euros because of the fact that he put in a performance of a lifetime there. That was the best I've seen of Sterling in English colours for a long, long time. And henceforth, I believe Gareth Southgate also will be not looking anything beyond Sterling, because I've told you, Gareth Southgate has got this tendency of going to players who's done well for him over a longer period of time. And Sterling is a player who's done well for him. Can't say that, in club level, maybe he's a player who's not really reached his potential to that extent. But for England, at least, Gareth Southgate believes that whenever he's given an opportunity, he's done a decent job. He's put in those goals. He's put in, he's created those moments of magic for him, and he's got the pace as well. Hence, I think Gareth Southgate will start Saka, and it's going to be Mason Mount who will start through the middle. And maybe when it comes to changes, he can bring in a Phil Foden ahead of instead of a Saka, maybe a Madison instead of a Mount, and a Grealish instead of maybe Saka as well. So this is where Gareth Southgate will have to be really, really astute in terms of his in his decision making, in his selection of this playing 11, because you have to set the tone from that first game. You can't afford to draw a couple of games here, then you are going to be under deep pressure to qualify into the next round, and especially games against Wales and Iran. I think that's going to be the most important games for England. If they don't get favorable results in their favor, then they're going to feel the pressure. Come the last game of the group, they're going to be under considerable amount of pressure to make it out of the group, and then there'll be serious questions. I think this will be the last tenure for Gareth Southgate as well. If I'm not wrong, regardless of the result, what will happen in the Qatar World Cup, I think this is going to be the last tenure of last major um, job for Gareth Southgate in manager position of English national team.
I mean, that is going to be interesting, right? Because there are a lot of people who are calling for his head already among the English fans. You're also seeing that. I think that does happen in international football. You don't see managers continue for a long amount of time, and I mean, it's not going to be an easy World Cup because there are teams that are much better on paper. Even when you compare England at their best or what England can do, the potential that they have. Looking at this squad right now, I think you probably also see that, I think for me, personally speaking, you would see that, the engine room of this team really has to be that defensive midfield position of Jude Bellingham and then the combination of Jude Bellingham and Declan Rice, because I think the kind of system that you see Gareth Southgate deploy, you would expect that these two are the players who will carry that ball from the defense to that the three that will be there playing behind
Yeah,
Harry
I'll just
Kane.
pull the
And I
probable
think
11
also
out
what's going to be
where.
interesting, I think what will really help Gareth Southgate in this scenario is that Harry Kane is a striker who likes coming deep and play the ball towards the post. He's not one of those. He's got a very good rate when it comes to off the ball. He will come in a lot deeper. He wants to take the ball forward, and maybe he can bring in Phil Foden and Raheem Sterling early on. But Jude
Hmm.
Bellingham and Declan Rice, we'll speak about those two. How important are they as a combination in this team now?
I think if you look at this lineup, I think Bellingham will play on the right hand side and Declan Rice on the left hand side. But when you talk about Declan Rice, he's going to be your defensive shadow to Maguire and John Stones. He's going to deep. He's going to put in. He's going to be the deep line midfielder where he's going to not make a lot of attacking progression. He's not going to go ahead of the line. He's going to play within the line, central line. He's not going to make any progression with the ball when it comes to attacking transitions as well. It's going to be Bellingham who's going to make those progressive runs in between Mason Mount and link up with even Harry Kane at times. Because in half spaces, I think Bellingham is a better attacking player compared to Declan Rice. And that's whatever I've seen of Jude Bellingham with English team. In half spaces, he operates a lot better and he's a lot more confident. He's a better attacking suited player in this team. He's a lot more creative when it comes to his play as well.
Hmm.
And as you mentioned, it's going to be the engine room. But when it comes to defensive acumen, I think that's the reason why Declan Rice is going to be much more deeper is because of his defensive ability and his ability to
Yeah.
drop in a lot more deeper and to come in between even Harry Maguire and John Stones, making them a back fight on defensive plays is going to be the reason why Declan Rice is not going to be the attacking or the creative midfielder here. It's going to be Jude Bellingham alongside Mason Mount, who's going to link up a lot more. Especially Jude Bellingham will be dropping right in between in this lineup. If you say he might drop in right in between Phil Foden and Mason Mount. Ideally, it's going to be Bukayo Saka and Mason Mount who's going to be starting on that side. It's going to be Sterling, Mason Mount, and Bukayo Saka. I believe will be starting for this English team because of the trend which Southgate has deployed, because of the trend which Southgate likes to play as well. Hence, I believe if you look at this lineup, I think Jude Bellingham will be on the right hand side and Declan Rice will be on the left hand side. And what Bellingham is going to do is he's going to cut in spaces. He's either going to cut in spaces between Sterling and Mason Mount or in between Saka and Mason Mount over here and link up with Harry Kane. And Harry Kane is going to drop a lot more deeper, where he's going to allow a Mason Mount to progress a little more further into the play. But this team is going to have certain issues. If you look into this team, they've got it in them. They're going to be put under pressure if a team really presses them. That's where they're.
Hmm.
That's where I think they're going to be
Yeah.
tested a lot more. They'll go into defensive rondos. That's what I personally believe. Especially when it comes to a team who can press them a lot more. I think they will really struggle there because then their penetration tempo, everything will be stopped. Especially against
Hmm.
those bigger teams, likes of Netherlands, likes of maybe Argentina, who might come up against them, or mostly the European teams, whoever they're going to face when it comes to the knockout stages and when they progress there, the bigger teams are really going to put them under pressure, and that's why I think the pivot zone to bring the ball out of pressure, I think they will struggle a little bit. That's one of the bigger worries about this team going ahead. And also maybe that's where I'll give them a 7 on 10. And out wide as well, when it comes to Saka, who's the one who's going to possibly start. He does possess a genuine wing threat. He's got that. He's like, though England does not have spades like maybe Brazil or France in the wing side, but the fact is that Saka overlapping with Trippier is going to create um, a lot more potency in attacking prowess for them. Which is going to be a potent attacking threat against a lot of teams because they can both overlap each other. They can both link up well and put in the balls in, or maybe Saka can cut into the box, and maybe Trippier can give them the width, which I think will be a very good option on the right hand side. But when it comes to left hand side, that's where I think Shaw is slightly a downgrade when you compare him with the Ben Chilwell. Shaw is maybe he's done decently. He's not done. He's not been not the most impressive in Manchester United as well. So not having Ben Chilwell is a huge
Yeah.
loss. I'll still take a Reece James' loss, but when it comes to Ben Chilwell, it's going to be a huge loss for this English team. Shaw is not the Shaw linking up maybe with a Sterling is not the ideal thing, to be honest. It might it might clash a lot in left half spaces for them, and especially in left half spaces where Shaw and Sterling maybe not being able to make a lot of overlapping runs, not able to link up well, will be an issue for this English team. That's where the penetration is going to struggle, because unless you attack from both the wings, you're not going to penetrate enough, and that's what I saw of them in the Nations League. That's what I worry of them going into the World Cup. I hope they'll be able to sort that out a lot better. Maybe an option for them is to play Trippier on the left hand side as well, which I think they might deploy at some stage, considering the fact that they've also got Ben White in the team. Ben White has been doing a decent job for Arsenal in the right back position. Uh, a possible backup for Kyle Walker is what I see, because when you look at the left back position, they don't have backups, and hence I believe Trippier is an option they are considering in the left back position, and he might be deployed in some of the games as well if you go ahead in the World Cup.
All right. I mean, what do you think of Kyle Walker Peters missing out on the chance? Because he was someone I think who could have played on the fullback position for England. Looking at the fact that especially Ben Chilwell was missing.
Yeah, should have. Maybe they would have definitely considered him. And I mean, for a funny, for the first, it's a funny thing that English team, in the fullbacks side where they've got immense depth there, they're kind of struggling there, to be very honest, because of the fact that they are missing on two of the biggest names in fullbacks in English Premier League right now. Reece James and Ben Chilwell, huge blow that they're not going to be making it to the World Cup. But I think Ben White has done a decent job for Arsenal so far in fullback position. Hence, that gives Southgate also that belief that these lads are flexible. Ben White also can be deployed as a centre back if at all there's a need. And when it comes to Trippier, he can also be deployed as a right centre back. And you can play if you're playing five at the back. With you are going to have Kyle Walker as a right wing back, or even Trent Alexander-Arnold as a wing back. If you want to have a little more attacking prowess there, you can deploy Trippier as a right centre back as well in this team, which Trippier is capable of doing a good job, or a far decent job with this team. So it gives Gareth Southgate a lot of flexibility, because of the fact that these players play in flexible positions a lot more. Even Trent Alexander-Arnold, he can be really deployed in Bukayo Saka's position if you really want to have the attacking prowess and make those cut inside the box and give the balls into Harry Kane. If you want that kind of a game style, I think Trent Alexander-Arnold can be used in that position, in a right mid position, not necessarily in a right back position, and he'll have a defensive cover with the likes of Trippier behind him. A possible option which he can deploy, which I don't think a rigid manager like Gareth Southgate will deploy. He believes in players sticking to their position a lot more, but then it gives him a lot more options because of the fact that these players are flexible, which I thought the previous English teams weren't having. A lot of previous English teams were not flexible enough. Maybe Jack Grealish can play anywhere in that attacking side. He can play as a center attacking midfielder. He can play as a left midfielder, where he actually prefers playing. He prefers playing on the wings, especially on the left wing. And I think the biggest strength of this team is their central play, like so Foden, Mason Mount, and Jack Grealish, who all likes to roam freely, playing in those number 10 position. I think is going to be the biggest strength of this English team, and that's why English team really have to exploit themselves to make in behind runs, attack teams centrally, which I think this team is capable of doing, because the likes of Mason Mount can really put in splitting passes. They can split the defenders, get the ball right into Harry Kane. Like so, Phil Foden is also capable of doing that. He can cut in from the left hand side, come in centrally, have a free roaming position, bring the ball right into Harry Kane's legs, which I think is a possibility which English team should look to be doing in this World Cup. And if if they're able to do that successfully, I think English team will have a deeper run into the World Cup.
All right. So then now let's look at the key players for England team. Obviously, England is a team which you would say the manager is a defensive-minded manager, and they've been criticized for the lack of goals. But the two gentlemen right now we're going to be talking about have been the key, or will be the key now coming into this World Cup, to make sure that they produce goals for their countries. And it's Raheem Sterling now playing for Chelsea. Harry Kane has been the leader of the attack for Tottenham Hotspurs. They're used to this kind of position, isn't it? They're used to this kind of pressure. Also, they're veterans of England team for quite some time. Harry Kane is also the captain of the England football team. So now coming forward, look at the stats right here. 19 goals, 14 assists for the 79 caps that Raheem Sterling's had, 11 goals for Harry Kane so far in his career. Where do
No,
you
this is
really think
no, this is
these two?
Premier League. August Tally, Harry Kane's
Oh,
Premier
this is
League goals.
Premier League, right? Sorry. Yeah. Harry Kane in the Premier League this season, right? Um, Looking forward now, Harry Kane obviously has again looked like the player that we know that he is. He's looked like the player that Tottenham Hotspur have really depended on. Raheem Sterling, on the other hand, hasn't been probably the kind of star that Chelsea were looking for. He did show some glimpses of his skills or some glimpses of his star power, but he hasn't been the Raheem Sterling we know he has been for Man City for the year that he played for them. Looking now going into the World Cup, do you think that will change when he wears the England jersey?
Mean, it should ideally change. And even for Manchester City, he was not looking the best player. But when it came to the Euros, especially last year's Euros, Sterling was a different player altogether. He was involved a lot more. He was making in behind runs. He was a lot more creative, and his pace was a big factor for Team England. Making in especially in the final third, where he was able to really give the left backs or the right backs from the opposition a tough time. He could really, charge the right backs, put them under pressure, cut in, and put a ball in, or link up play with Harry Kane and score. And his best part was he found his scoring boots. I think he scored 5 goals for England in Euros and 5 crucial goals where he was able to get in position to score, which I don't think Manchester City he was doing a lot more. Manchester City made him look like a very good player because in Manchester City, any player goes there, you will get to score goals. The fact of the matter is Manchester City is such a team that you are going to be given very good
Yeah,
balls into the
that
box.
is
And
just the citizen in you talking right now.
no, the fact of the matter is, it is. Even if I was not even a citizen, I'm just saying that Manchester City makes players look good. For example, Haaland or any striker in that team would have scored goals because that's what City plays like. Even with our strikers, City had equal amount of goals as they have right now in the season, and even with Haaland, they have it. The fact is that Sterling was used in that position. Sterling was used on the left hand side for City in multiple occasions. He did a decent job. Even for Chelsea, he's not done badly. He's done decent in occasions, and I think for England he'll be used a lot more. He'll be a much more he'll be playing a pivotal role for England, I believe, more than what he's playing for Chelsea because his role in that English team is a lot more crucial because on the left hand side to use his space to link up with Harry Kane, Mason Mount is going to be tough. It's going to be a very important job for him, and especially he'll be someone who I believe might be playing as a second striker to Harry Kane in attacking transitions as well. Because I've seen with this English team in Euros, especially Harry Kane was dropping in a lot more deeper, and you do not see a lot of goals from Harry Kane. Harry Kane is a very smart player. Let's remember that he can hold up the ball a lot more. He can hold up and he can pass. He can penetrate it through. Where he was linking up pretty well with Sterling, and as well Sterling benefited a lot more in that link up play with Harry Kane. And Harry Kane has got that ability. And when you have Harry Kane as a striker, and when you have Mason Mount besides you, I think Sterling will benefit a lot, and that's what he did in Euros.
Absolutely. Well, we are coming to the end of the live. We've spoken extensively about England so far, but before we go, this one last segment that we're going to try out is going to be the kit review. World Cup has, always had some of the most iconic kits. So let's look at England's kits for this World Cup right now, coming up on your screen. There we go. The home kit is, the whites that England usually wears. What do you think of the home kit, Abel? Let's begin with it. But I mean, before I ask you, I think for me it is. I mean, I would have expected a little bit more blue. I think I like the fade, but if the whole sleeves probably would have been covered in blue, I think it would have looked a lot better for me.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
just my
yeah. I
opinion. I
also
think
agree to
right
that
now it just
fact.
looks a little empty.
Yeah, it does. It does. I don't like the sleeves having the white shade in it. It should have been that
Yeah,
blue, light blue mix. But I like the red kit. I like the away kit a lot more. It looks much more
right. I
classic.
think the away kit is something that I would like to buy. And it's
It's
pretty
it's, it's
smooth.
a
It's
very
pretty
classic English kit,
simple. Yeah.
and that English red which has come out, it looks like the cricket team's kit as well.
Oh man,
Uh,
don't see. I knew you were gonna say this. I was hoping you wouldn't put it. Just don't. Let's not talk about that. This is football, label. This is a sport where we support England more than we supported
yeah,
them yesterday.
and imagine England winning the FIFA World Cup and the Cricket World Cup, right? That's gonna be one of the most iconic triumphs in sporting history, to be honest,
Yeah,
if
I
they win
think
the FIFA World Cup
Englishmen.
and the Cricket
Yeah,
World Cup, which I think the Cricket
absolutely.
World Cup, they have a better chance. FIFA World Cup, they'll really have to play out of the skin because there are some really crazy teams and there are some really potent and strong teams out there in the World Cup. They'll have to beat the best to win the World Cup this time around, because this time around it's going to be the most level playing field we're going to see in a World Cup after a long time. The quality of the games are going to be top notch, which I believe, and I hope I'm not disappointed by that. And these lads can really put it up. If they can put up a good show in a World Cup, at least make a deep run, they'll be personally disappointed with the talent they've got in this squad. They should be disappointed if they don't make it to the semi-final at least. I personally think the kit, when you talk about the kit, I'll give them a 7 on 10 on both the kits, especially on the red kit. Because of the red kit, I'll give them a overall 7 on 10. What about you?
For me, I think I'll probably go by six. Six, I would say, because I think English kit would have been really nice if it had been, that fade, I liked it, but if they had covered the whole sleeves in blue. So I'll give six for the home kit. At home kit, away kit, I'll be giving them, I think a 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the average is, you guys can probably calculate it and tell me the overall of it.
Yeah.
For me, I love the red kit, and I think England should play in the red because they are not playing home, right? I know it doesn't
Yeah.
work like that in World Cups. Just play in red.
Yeah, for example, Croatia
Red kit.
last edition's World Cup played in their away kit throughout until the final, where they
Yeah.
lost. So,
All
yeah.
right. So that's about it. On a lighter note, for those of you, we all need to see, I think starting from the late November, whether England will be able to bring it back home after 1966. But thank you so much for joining us on this live, exciting Football World Cup coming forward. We will be covering a lot more teams from tomorrow onwards by side, and obviously there is the pinnacle of World T20 coming to you. We will be coming to you on Saturday and after the match on Sunday, covering
And
the
we'll be coming
final,
today evening
whichever
as
wins.
well.
And today evening as well. I think today we are definitely we're gonna come up with a special episode on the Indian white ball team, especially the T20 team. We're gonna be looking at the World Cup and what they could have done different, and what probably India will be looking to do in the future. Thank you so much for joining us. A lot more exciting content coming right here on Boom 11 official channel. And before we leave you with the fact that Boom 11 is the non-risk free. It's the risk-free fantasy experience that you can get on your Apple App Store and Google Play. Please download and play, because this is one, risk-free fantasy experience, as I keep saying again and again. Because I tell you guys, the prices that you can redeem those points are really great. I myself make sure every day I check them out. I play contests regularly. I know Abel does it as well, and you guys can gain, those prices without actually putting in any money. So why don't you just go out and try our fantasy experience out? So thank you so much for joining us. We will be bringing that fantasy experience throughout the FIFA World Cup. Thank you once again. Good afternoon. I think that's what we'll say. I'm not probably used to saying this at the end of the live, but thank you so much for joining us at this hour. We will be coming to you live today evening, and going through the FIFA World Cup as well. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.